Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back, and we are, after our 1 week hiatus, back talking about classic Survivor. And today we are talking, I want to see if I can make a deal iconic for so many reasons, but the main reason is Yao-Man sells dreams on the idea of this car for a shot at the final three if you win it at final four. Nobody thought Dreams was going to stick to the word. Even Yao-Man didn't think he was going to stick to the word, but man, did this create some serious drama. Very exciting episode. And at the time, really was one of the most talked about things going on TV. Such a popular moment. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one. I haven't watched Fiji in so long. This is a good episode. It's a shame the rest of the season isn't.
That's what I was about to say. Like, I also haven't watched Fiji in a really long time, but this episode was really good, and it almost made me want to rewatch Fiji. But I think we're at a point where like Yao-Man, amazing character. Like, Dreams, amazing character. Earl, great player and character. Like, there are really good characters, and like, luckily they do make it generally far. But this moment is so good because, to your point, everyone knows, Yao and Dreams included, know that this isn't going to work. And this entire second half of the episode is just Yao-Man and Dreams trying to get rid of each other, or Dreams trying to get rid of Yao-Man. I actually think there's some really fun strategy as they're going into tribal council here. This is a really fun episode.
Yeah, and Dreams gets pretty panned in the Survivor community because he is a 0 vote finalist. But I do think that he has game. It just doesn't come across the way some other people's game comes across. As soon as Yao-Man made the deal with him, he brilliantly was like, let's get him out first. Let's get him out now at final 6, at final 5. Let's move up his expiration date then, so that I don't have to worry about at final 4 having to give him this immunity necklace. Now, we all know that what ends up happening is ultimately Dream wins the final 4 immunity challenge, doesn't give Yao-Man the idol. Yao-Man goes home. There you go. We all know that that's what happens. We all know that's what's going to happen as we're watching the episode. But I love that Dreams is really thinking about, I don't want to look like a liar to everybody. I don't want everybody to think I'm not a man of my word, but also I can't let Yao-Man get there. So now let's get rid of him tonight. And Yao-Man convinces Earl at the end of the episode, give me the idol because I need to play it. Yao-Man plays the idol successfully, probably one of the more forgotten successful idol plays in Survivor history. Plays the idol successfully. But this was a very, very, very smart move by Dreams. And it is Dreams who comes up with this to try to get them out, or to get Yao-Man out before this even has to come to fruition. Now, luckily, it doesn't work because it leads to so much more drama, which is really what Survivor wants.
Yeah, I guess Fiji does have a really good like end game, or it just has a really exciting finish. But I'm with you, and I think I'm saying something that I don't have a source for, so bear with me. I'm pretty sure Yao like has come out and said that he completely was like knew that he was taking advantage of somebody who was homeless, and like Dream said he's never had a car, he's never even had a license, which is insane. Like, we've never had a player like that before. And I think Dreams does get a lot of flack because of the situation that he comes from. And I think like Yao-Man completely knew that what he was doing, and I think there's like a whole other societal conversation we had about that. But I think you're right in that Dreams is a lot smarter than he was led on. I think he was a much better player than he was edited, and then how people not so much edited, but I guess like then how people took him. But I think just Earl was that good and Yao-Man was that good. And it's really a shame that Yao-Man's second iteration was so short-lived because he was so good on this season. And his idol play, like you said, it's like I almost like forgot that he was going to play it because he sits on the idol for so long before.
I will say that I think Yao-Man is the most forgotten great player in Survivor history. I think that people totally forget how good of a player he truly was because Fiji is so unpopular and because he goes out so early in Micronesia. I think people just don't think about, who is this guy? If you don't go back and watch Fiji, you don't think about it. But at the time, everybody wanted Yao-Man to win this season. You were coming off of 13, where it was the complete opposite, where everybody's rooting for Ozzy. Ozzy was the challenges. And now you have Yao-Man, who, he's a ping pong playing whatever, small guy, who would think, total underdog. And he just is such a phenomenal player. John just said here in the chat, giving up the truck to get the exile clue is genius. And it is. Think about the layers to this. He says to Dreams, if you get the final four and you win immunity, you have to give it to me, but I'll give you this car. Probably knowing that's not going to work, but you at least put it in Dreams' mind, which is sometimes all you need to do in Survivor. Look what happens 2 seasons later with Eric Reichenbach. Just plant the damn seed and see if it grows. And then he goes, gets the idol because he sends himself to exile, goes and gets the idol, or Earl actually gets it for him, takes it from Earl, plays it, knows he's now going to Final 5, knows that he and Earl both have another idol that will get him the Final 4, and he has positioned himself, which I'm not going to win the Final 4 challenge, but Dream's going to have to give this to me. That is such phenomenal strategy for season 14. Like, do we realize that is season 14? Multiple idols in a season wasn't a thing yet. And he's figuring out how to use those, how to use to manipulate the truck challenge, how to manipulate the other players. It is so phenomenal, the strategy that he employs here. And it's unfortunate because now we don't think of Yao-Man as that upper echelon of Survivor, when at this time there was an argument to be made that he would have been on the Rushmore of Survivor.
Yeah, and his choice to go to exile, that's something that is way ahead of his time, that like kind of doesn't even happen that much even after the fact. And it doesn't even put a target on his back. There's no target on Yao-Man's back until Dreams brings him back up, because everyone's focusing on Dreams now that he has the car. But Yao-Man is still very much a threat here. And obviously, like, he ends up playing the idol, but he really, I think it's like, just because of who he is, he still seems not intimidating, even though he's probably the best player on the season.
Yeah, I think he is. If Earl doesn't win the season, Yao-Man's a better player. But because Earl wins it, wins it 10-0. Not a perfect win, but because of how it goes down, I end up putting him higher, regarding him higher. But like at this time, you'd probably go, because people hated Fair Play so much that they weren't going to consider him there. But you would probably go Rob Cesternino, you would go Lex Vandenberg, you'd go Kathy Vavrick O'Brien, Terry Dietz, Yao-Man, Earl. Those are your 5 best robbed goddesses getting that 3rd place, or 4th place in this case, just missing Final Tribal Council. Yao-Man might have been at the top of people's lists for that. That's how much people loved Yao-Man at the time, and how good of a player he was, and how different what he was doing was. Total game changer, but completely forgotten, just because now 26 seasons later, going into 27 seasons later, he hasn't played since season 16. I actually got to meet Yao-Man at the 38 finale. He's old now. I mean, he's in his 60s. He's not coming back to play again, but he's a very, very, very great player who unfortunately falls out of icon status just because of time.
Right. And I think there's something to be said about, I guess, this isn't exactly what we're talking about, because we're talking about the car curse specifically, but yeah, in terms of Survivor Fiji, I think Survivor Ghost Island, I'm trying to think of a couple others, where like this season is unpopular, so therefore the winner and the other players who are very good are just not going to be regarded as much. Wendell didn't have a flashy win. Earl didn't particularly have a flashy win. Both of them, I think, played very, very good winning games. Dom versus Yao-Man is obviously a bit of a different situation because Dom tied, but I still think in general, because Ghost Island isn't popular and because Fiji isn't popular, people aren't going to be like scrambling to see Yao-Man again, even though I think he would be great. And I think, Earl didn't make it onto Winners at War. So, which I don't know if that was like because of some extenuating circumstance or not. But I think when you have an unpopular season, whether or not it's a good winner, people aren't going to care.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. And Yao-Man is now 68 years old.
Wow.
Unfortunately, his time has passed. Like, he's not coming back on a Survivor. He's not that type of 72-year-old curmudgeon that they like to put on the show. They like Joe Del Campo. They like Rudy, because they're both kind of bitter old men. Yao-Man's a very nice, very happy guy. So yeah, it is a shame though, because there are some great moments from the season. And even this car curse situation, this car deal situation that is the focal point of this episode, it has been pushed aside by time. It has just been pushed to the side. You have to think, in season 14 in 2007, when this was airing, everyone was talking about this. Then next season happens, James with his 2 idols. Everybody's talking about the 2 idols and this. The season after that, when Eric gives up his immunity idol, everybody's talking about Eric, James, and this. Season 17, nothing comes close. They're still talking about this. It wasn't really until Heroes Villains happened that people kind of stopped talking about this. And now, because people aren't going back and watching this season, we're not like, I would almost bet that even diehard Survivor fans probably aren't watching Fiji to remember this. And if they didn't watch it live, I know this is one of the first seasons you watched live and I watched it live. If they didn't watch it live, they don't really know the impact that this had. And you're never going to understand it. And if you don't go back and rewatch it, or if you watched it 6, 7, 8 years ago when you were going through all the episodes and then you stop, you're just not going to care. And that's the shame of it, because this is upper echelon, iconic moments. And it's better than it's brilliant for so many reasons, but because it also introduces a strategy element that people were just not thinking about the way that Yao Man was. He was playing 4D ping pong here. So it was just unreal.
4D ping pong. I want to give a quick shout out to Joe Haas. He just dropped us $9.99. You might mention it later, but I feel for Dreams because they didn't know that it would be a final 3. They never saw the end of Cook Islands. I wonder if Yao would have done it differently, knowing if it would have been a final 3. Yeah, I do wonder that. That is a good point. I want to there's a lot to cover on this episode because, again, like, shockingly, this is an amazing episode on a very lackluster season. One other thing that has kept this episode specifically very, very important in Survivor history is that this episode leads off with a spy shack.
Absolutely. And again, no one talking about that. And I know we gave Russell shit for it too, and I have no problem doing it.
Her eyes were like, what?
When he puts Boo at number 96 or number 97 or whatever it was on his list, despite the fact that Alexa and I didn't have Boo on either of our lists, and somehow Troyzan comes in at 100 despite being on all 5 lists. I don't know. There's a reason why Adam Jumba went to film school and not MIT like Yao Man here. But I just think this is another thing. No one talks about the fact that this had been done in season 14 with Boo Burness. Kenward Boo Burn, whatever the hell his name is. Kenward Boo Burness, I think his name is. Nobody talks about that because everybody gives all the credit to Tony and to the people who do this. But Boo did it just on this totally forgettable season of Survivor.
Totally. And he like Tony copied him. Like, this guy, it's the exact same thing. Like, he's looking through the bushes. It's the same exact thing as Tony's first spy shack. That being said, I don't really know if Tony watched Survivor Fiji. I don't really know like what extent of a fan Tony was before this. But again, something like I've been noticing this in South African Survivor, and this is something that I do see in old school Survivor, where big moments or like big funny moments, they don't have the same music or the same reactions that a lot of modern Survivor have. Like the idol on the podium, like that happens in South African Survivor, and it's like they're like, oh, interesting, how cool. But and like it would have been like Eliza's mouth has dropped and Jeff is losing his mind and there's crazy music. In Survivor Fiji, like it's like, okay, Boo made this spy shack thing and then we just moved on. Like it's just like there are still big moments, but they're just a little more, I guess, a little more real.
It's social media culture. That's the problem, is social media now Survivor leans into things more, and production will lean into things more in hopes that it'll become memeified or will be trending on Twitter or will be shared on Instagram. That's what they're hoping. And that's why they blow it up so much more than what you were seeing back in season 14. Because you have to think, another reason why Yao Man falls to the wayside, why people don't talk about Boo building spy shacks, why they don't really talk about Earl, is because when it happened, that was it. This is what we watched. This is what happened. And then we moved on and we didn't watch that season again. Nobody was going and buying the Survivor Fiji DVD. And CBS All Access didn't come around until just a few years ago. So this wasn't something that people were going to be trending on Twitter or talking about or anything like that. And I do think that the culture that we just live in now, where everything can become a big moment. I mean, think about that one, the redhead guy who just does the little like whatever, where he leans his head back and it's like the eye blink. That's a 45-minute, hour-long documentary. And that's literally one split second that somehow became an insanely popular GIF. But I will say GIF because GIF is stupid. But like, it's just crazy. And I think that's why now you see that so much more, especially in American Survivor, where they're trying to blow it up for ratings.
Yeah. I'm completely with you. I think that's definitely it. And I think even with this car moment, I think this carries enough weight that people are obviously talking about it. But I do think it's funny that I love Tony and he's the best and this, that, and the other thing. But the Spy Shack happened before him. Yeah. Tony just knew how to sell it. Boo didn't sell it because it wasn't a thing to do on Survivor at that time.
And I think that's a lot of the older players. You don't realize that you're creating a monster when you're creating the monster, so it's hard to, I think now, and I've said this a lot, I think now a lot of players, they go on to either try to play a second time or become internet famous or become whatever. Back in the day, they were just kind of going out there and they wanted to be on TV. Don't get me wrong with that. Most survivors are fame seeking people. That is the truth. Even if they're the fame seeking Bob Crowley, who he's like, I'm doing this for the fire and the adventure and blah, blah, blah. He still wanted to be on TV to do it. You know what I mean? So I just think that back then there was so much less of, I'm going to get a deal out of this. Boo wasn't thinking, I am going to just be an all-star and I'm going to, get some sponsorship or I'm going to get to sell. I know you've all been wondering what Boo's been doing to his eyebrows. Well, let me tell you what I've been doing. And that wasn't happening back then. So I feel like they weren't blowing it up as much either. Johnny Fairplay was when he does the grandmother lie because he wanted to become a reality star. He wanted to become a wrestling star. He wanted to become all of those things. That's different though than what we're seeing for the most part with these players.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So I guess we don't have to talk about the challenge individually, but one thing that I do want to point out, I think this is the biggest car that Survivor has given away. This is a full on heavy duty pickup truck.
F-350. I mean, that's a big truck.
That's a badass car. I think in Guatemala, whatever car, what's her face ends up getting, Cindy, it's just not that cool.
No, a lot of them are more of SUVs, I think. Yeah. And then this was really the first. I don't think this was the first truck, though. I just think that a lot of times I know in Amazon, it was more of the camper back where they slept in the back with the roof over it and all of that. But I do think that this was the biggest. This is one of those where, how do you line that up to go through a toll booth? I don't really understand how you do it. So,
right.
And I do love the cuts here of Boo driving the car, despite the fact that it's Dreams' car, because Dreams doesn't have a driver's license. And guess what? That doesn't mean you can just drive in Fiji. No, he can't drive in Fiji.
Yeah, he can't drive. And that was really funny. And that this was another one where I feel like you're not crazy about these rewards, but these are the kind of rewards that are just taken away and just not a part of Survivor anymore. And I know that rewards aren't important, but I would like them to be. And for what it's worth, I would love for the car challenge to come back. I think modern Survivor could actually really benefit from a car challenge because I think it makes people care about the reward and it makes people try to beat the car curse. Players are so meta at this point in Survivor that they would do what Yao did to so many more degrees. I think there's a lot of good strategy that can come out of it.
Yeah, the problem is always with sponsorships.
Yeah, you got to
get a car out there unless you're sponsored by the car company. And back in the day, it was easy for them to get Ford or GMC or whatever they were giving away. It's harder now. And how do you get a car to sponsor you? I don't know. But maybe with everything that happened during this pandemic and everything really shifting to streaming, the fact that Disney just announced today that, they're releasing Luca, a Pixar movie, just on Disney Plus, and they're not even going to charge their stupid $30 fee. That's total BS because you're supposed to be paying for new content anyway, but that's a different point. But things have changed so much now that maybe getting 5 million viewers on CBS isn't that big of a deal. And a car company will want to do that for a show like Survivor that's on CBS and ultimately is still in front of enough eyes. There's no way sponsoring on Survivor is going to be bad for business. I don't imagine that happening. Maybe if you were sponsoring in the car challenge happened to be during the Zeke and Varner episode, sure. But for the most part, it's not going to be a bad thing to sponsor on CBS with Survivor.
Yeah. 100%. I hope they get that sponsor back. I love the sponsored episodes. We had a blast talking about Applebee's. Worth playing for. Great comment here. The car would have been the perfect thing to be on Ghost Island, as if this is the car that Yao Man won and gave away. If Dreams still has that car, he'd have to go donate that to Fiji and then have it sent back to him. That would be hilarious. Or Dreams is in the car. That'd be even better.
Dreams is still there. But yes, I agree with you. On Applebee's and stuff, it creates that conversation. But again, how small is that Applebee's moment And how much do people who watch only Modern Survivor remember that? And if they didn't watch Fiji live and they just watched it kind of in passing, they probably don't talk about this Fiji car curse as much as they talk about Charisma with Applebee's. That's crazy.
Insane.
That is so insane.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So where do you think, like, what do you think that this episode carries into Modern Survivor?
I think Yao Man is changing the game with this for sure. You have to think he definitely was watching the seasons. I definitely think he probably found a way to watch some of them at least. But when it comes to Guatemala, where Cindy is given the choice, either take the car or give it to everybody else, and she takes it, which is like totally the right move. It's, you got to take something because they're not going to let you win. And then in season 12, Terry wins it. And then in season 13, it's I forget. I think it's Ozzy who wins it. But then in season 14, now you kind of change the game. I think Yao Man sending himself to exile was a big move that we really start to play out in season 15 and 16 and 17 and 18, and maybe not in 15 because there wasn't exile, but in 16 and 17 with the Sugar Shack and things along those lines, and Bob going. And I think people start to think, hey, we can actually use exile to our advantage. This isn't just a bad place or a place that I must be sent by somebody else who doesn't like me. So I do think that there are small bits of strategy here that absolutely carry over. People are now always putting people into positions of, hey, I'll give you this, but you can't screw me over at a later date, and making it publicly known at tribal council the way Yao Man and Dreams do in this episode, so that if Dreams doesn't hold up his word, Dreams isn't going to get a single vote as we see it play out. I don't think he was going to get a single vote anyway, but that's how it ends up playing out. So I think there's little things. Ultimately, though, because this is in Survivor Fiji, I think it almost has no impact on the show in terms of when players go out there to play the game. Are they thinking about this? I don't think so at all. I really don't.
I don't think so either. And how long does the car challenge last? In terms, like, what season is the last season with a car?
I don't think.
Feel like it finishes. It doesn't last much longer.
Did China have one? We just watched China.
I feel like China didn't have one.
Let's
Are we insane? No, nope.
No, Denise did not win.
No, China just had a lot of very extensive rewards.
Hang on, let's see.
So anyway, while Phil's looking that up, I think because there isn't anything as monumental as the car reward, that it's hard to have that kind of.
This is the last one.
Wow. Okay.
And that's crazy that this is the last one.
That is insane.
It goes out with a really big bang and they never do it again.
That's crazy. Maybe Ford is just like, screw this. Like, Yao Man didn't want my car.
Crazy.
But that kind of fits into what I was saying, in that, like, because this doesn't happen anymore, and the family visit isn't quite the same thing, where something of this magnitude is not something that you can dangle in front of people. Like Ron Clark having that little advantage menu, him giving that to Rick Devens means absolutely nothing compared to Yao Man giving a homeless person a car. Yeah. So I think even with the family visit, I think, like, I'm about to make a reference. I don't really know, but like Tarzan really wanted to be with his wife during the family visit, and they let him have that. Like, that's still a different type of reward. But I think you do see that where there's a lot of bitterness after people don't get what they want on the family visit. So I think that part carries a bit, but clearly this doesn't last much longer.
No, and so I'm on Survivor Wiki, and the trivia here, it says some assume that cars are no longer offered as rewards because of the deal made between Yao Man and Dreams due to the use of a car as a way to bargain. Because remember, you can't bargain money in Survivor. And then it says another possible reason for the lack of a car reward in later seasons that according to U.S. law, the winner of the car reward has to pay taxes on the car by April 15th of the next calendar year, despite the castaways not receiving their winnings until the season finale airs, which is in May for even number seasons. In Fiji, Dreams received the car reward from Yao Man, but was unable to pay taxes on it, resulting in the truck being repossessed.
That's awful. So quickly. I feel like there's got to be.
I feel like Survivor definitely did something to make sure he got that.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, this is really going off the rails here, but like for them to not get their winnings and for them to have to pay their taxes before then, I feel like that should have been adjusted. Maybe it has by now, but again, no one has a $400,000 car or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I don't know. But anyway, Yeah, it's hard with this one because while I certainly remember it and everything, I think I've probably only watched Fiji 2 or 3 times in my life, which is a small amount compared to the older seasons. I've watched pretty much seasons 1 through 10 about 5 or 6 times each, over the course of my life, which seems like a lot, but over the course of my life, that's not really that crazy. And so Fiji is definitely one of the ones I've watched the least amount of times. And if I'm watching it the least amount of times, I have to imagine most people are probably watching it only once or twice. There's probably most people who only watched it at that time. And so in terms of the grand scheme of things, I don't really know. It doesn't feel like this is the type of episode. I know, like, we talk about iconic and, how would it hold up today? I feel like people would probably issue death threats to Dreams because that's how mature social media has made people. But I mean, I think that's really it. It wouldn't be canceled like what happened in the Amazon, or it wouldn't be like, oh God, we can't be airing that. This is definitely something that would still happen if it was allowed to happen. That's for sure. Like if the car still existed is what I'm saying. This is definitely something that they would still be okay with, but does it really have the impact that a double idol play by Parvati has? No. It's not like production was going out of their way to try to change the game. In fact, they did the exact opposite and stopped using it altogether.
Yeah, a game breaker, dare we say. Mm-hmm. But I think like maybe the quote unquote lesson to be learned from this episode that we've kind of been doing with the other episodes, it goes back to what we said at the beginning, where an unpopular season, or even Fiji's not even like one of the worst seasons. Like it's like middle to general bottom middle. Nobody, like, when people talk about the best winner ever, Earl doesn't come up. When people talk about one of the best to never win, Yao doesn't come up. People talk about most complex or controversial characters. People don't talk about Dreams. And for best moment, people don't talk about this. When in actuality, all 4 of those superlatives very much could have gone to all 4 of those people and moments.
I guess one thing that this did impact is that not so much this episode, but this season, is that Survivor was no longer able to just put diversity on the screen for the sake of putting diversity on the screen, because I think Survivor has also tried to sweep this season under the rug a little bit, just because a lot of what they cast was racial profiling for sure. Yeah. And I think that is something that they've kind of, ultimately when the 30, what do you call it? The 30th anniversary book comes out, the magazine. There's nothing from Fiji talked about in that book, except for maybe when it's the worst 10 seasons or something like that. I don't even know what's in that book. I forget. I have it somewhere, but Fiji isn't talked about much. And I think if the show isn't promoting this season, it's not going to remain in the public eye at all. And I do think that that's part of the reason why, like a season like Thailand from the early seasons is totally forgotten, why this season is being pushed out. You're never going to talk about it's like when a movie comes out and they're trying to sell it and they'll say from the director of Forrest Gump and Castaway. They don't say from the director of one of the 80 trash movies that Robert Zemeckis has made. Yeah. They mention the best ones. And I think that Survivor has very purposefully kind of ignored Fiji because of Rocky and the way he treats Anthony, because of characters like Lisi, because of Dreams. And I think that Dreams, despite being a very good character, I almost feel like Survivor probably doesn't like the fact that they put a homeless black man onto the show as a form of look at how diverse we can be. Well, right. Why couldn't you have just put a bunch of Earls on the show and had Boo be the homeless guy? Do you know what I'm saying? So it almost feels like they're leaning into those stereotypes and things along those lines, and they've tried to push it away a little bit. And that's probably why we don't hear about it as much, because this season's not going to show up on Netflix. This season doesn't show up on a lot of different, like other streaming platforms. I don't know if it's on Amazon, but if they were given the option, hey, we can only take 10 seasons. What 10 do we take? This is never, ever, ever going to be the option for any of those places. And Survivor's not going to push for the season to be seen by anybody. This is probably, in my opinion, the most skippable season of Survivor because so little comes of it. And Thailand I don't put in there just because it's one of the early seasons and it's kind of changing and shaping the game. But I do think this is a very skippable season.
Yeah, it doesn't have any highways because Earl doesn't come back. Yao-Man comes back and it's very brief. That's
it.
Question mark?
That's
yeah,
it.
I think that's
totally
I think Yao is the only person who. So there's no, with Kagian and with Here's There's Villains, there are a lot of other avenues to go down. So I think you're completely right. This season also, I'm pretty sure every single player except for is it Papa Bear or Papa Smurf?
Yes, was Papa Smurf. Papa Bear is South Pacific.
Every single person, Earl included, is a recruit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think and not that like a casual fan would know that, but I think that is certainly like subconsciously evident in the players that they picked.
Yeah. And then here, worth playing for says, to be fair, the season introduces the modern idol. That is true.
It does.
And that is probably something important to be said here. And I think that Yao Man's play here is only the second time that it's played, because the first time it's played is during the Edgardo boot, but that doesn't actually matter really, because it doesn't get played correctly. But here it is played correctly. I think this is this the first correct idol play of the modern idol in Survivor history? Is it by Yao Man in this episode?
I assume so. I don't know how many more other idol players there were, because Earl was holding on to his idol.
Alex plays his for himself, or Mookie plays it for Alex or something like that. And then Edgardo gets voted out. So yeah, I think that this is the first correct modern idol play. So massive episode, massive thing. Every episode now has idol plays. It doesn't get any bigger than that. Defining moment in Survivor history. No one's going to guess that it's here.
I'm actually glad that you brought up the Edgardo boot, because that goes back, like all these superlatives we were just talking about, like that is actually probably one of the more gifable moments of just like everyone's face dropping and Earl just like cracking up. Like that is a great, amazing moment. And even when Stacey is just like, why don't we get rid of Edgardo? And these 4 horsemen, which were like trying to be super intimidating, and they lasted 1.5 episodes. Like that was a really, really great arc. And that was an awesome moment. And people don't talk about it. And I loved that vote out. And Edgardo was like the best/worst person to go home, because he was the only generally likable one out of them.
Yeah. And I don't remember much about Stacey. But I will say, from this episode and from watching that episode when we did our bracket, that's not what we did. That was just daily content. I was going to say that's what we did last March, but that's not. Me and Alexa are trying to figure out what we did for last March as our bracket. But anyway, Stacey clearly had some game here, and I think she just gets very forgotten because, you know, everybody was like in love with Michelle for some reason, even though on that season I feel like Michelle was super, super boring, but she gets swap screwed or twist screwed, whatever.
She was twist screwed, and then she falls off the thing. And she's cute. So
yeah, and Stacey's just like not gifable. She's not memeable or any of that. But her moment in this episode where she's faking, like, I can't get the numbers, Earl. There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry. It's fantastic Survivor play. That is amazing Survivor play, especially for a casual, as we would call a filthy casual.
Filthy casual.
Phenomenal Survivor play. And that's something that comes out throughout the rest of the show. Think about how they play James with, we can never get the numbers. It's okay. We're just going to have to go home. How they play Eric, how they play Ozzy, how they play Jason. These are things that definitely happen throughout. That might be the biggest thing that to take away from this episode is somebody saying, sorry, there's nothing I can do about it, to try to get somebody else to not play an idol when they know that they have the numbers in their favor.
Yeah. And again, like we talked about this at the beginning, but the strategy of this episode is quite good. I think there's some pretty high level gameplay in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it stems from Yao Man and Stacey and Earl. And you know what? Dreams is playing. Boo is playing. Like I said in our recent Patreon episode, Cassandra's really the worst player on the season. She doesn't really do all that much. But I don't know. It's compared to the other episodes. I guess this is episode 7. Compared to the other episodes that we have talked about, this is definitely the least impactful, because I think too that the car challenge doesn't happen again. What would have happened if season 15 did have a car challenge? How would we have viewed this differently? Because would somebody have tried to play the car challenge the way that this is played? Because remember, when Todd talks about his sister having a miscarriage, everybody thinks he's lying. They all think that he's lying because of Johnny Fairplay. Well, what if there's also a car and somebody said, I can't even drive? What does it matter? Like, let's say Todd says, I don't even drive because I'm a flight attendant, whatever. Somebody says, I don't drive. I don't know what the reason would be. And I don't know what
I live in a city and I don't have my license.
And they give it to Denise. And now Denise gets it. Are they going to view that as game? Are they going to view that as exactly what Yao Man did? But we never really get to see the aftermath. This is the climax, but it's also the conclusion. And I think that's what ultimately hurts this episode in the long run, is that there is no conclusion beyond what we saw in this episode.
Yeah. I really think that I know that there's like a sponsor requirement here, but I genuinely think that modern Survivor players could really have a field day with this. I think it could be a lot of fun.
But I also think that I think whoever brought it up earlier, I think they were pretty correct though, that you can't bargain with money. You can't say, hey, I'll buy you a house or I'll give you $10,000 or something like that if you get me further in the game. And I think giving up a car and saying, I'll give you the car if you allow me to go further in the game, that's kind of bribing. And I don't think Survivor wants that, which could be a good point here from this wiki.
You think even though, I mean, I guess there was no precedent with the Yao thing.
No, and Jeff's always going to jump all over these. Jeff loves these moments in the moment. And then he'll normally say, okay, we can't do that again. But he loves these one-time Survivor first. I always liked when Gordon Holmes would do Survivor first or twist. And it would just be Jeff like smiling with his hands on his hips. I always loved reading those little recaps. But yeah, I just think that I think that probably breaks a law in the game that they might not have realized. You know, same thing with Pascal with the Purple Rock or Lex and Big Tom. Sometimes you just don't know, and sometimes you don't catch it, and you say, "Okay, great, it happened once. Don't let it happen again."
Yeah, and yeah, maybe I think maybe that's it. Maybe it went backwards, and they took it away because this happened. In which case, game changer.
Game changer. I mean, it's a game changer anyway. That's for sure.
Definitely. And that's where worth playing for. It says 1 car is 10 fire tokens, which really that sounds like inflation at its finest. Absolutely. But I think that maybe that's kind of what they're hoping to get with these fire tokens. The only difference is I don't give a crap if you're taking 5 fire tokens away from me, but if you're going to offer me a car, I am invested.
And that's the thing. A car has real life value. A fire token doesn't have real life value.
Right.
And that's
why I think, that's why I think like the family visit is the only thing that can swing something here, but I don't see people really doing that.
Yeah. I don't know. Does Fiji have a family visit? I don't think it does.
Oh, God, I have no idea.
Maybe it does.
Maybe I'll rewatch this season.
I'll rewatch it at some point. I'll get there.
Where are you? Are you guys on All Stars yet?
Oh, we're on All Stars. We watched the first 2 episodes, and I refuse to watch any more because I hate it so much. But I guess I'll be watching it soon because we're going to be doing an episode in a couple weeks regarding that one. So
we sure are.
Spoilers. Yeah. So classic Survivor. This is a classic episode that has now been forgotten, and I feel like this is one of those. I always go back to movies because that's kind of my reference point. But it kind of reminds me of like a Best Picture winner from the 50s or the 40s that isn't. It's not Casablanca, so people don't talk about it all the time. So you sit down, you watch it just because, and you're like, that's a good movie. Why don't people talk about that more? But it doesn't hit the social zeitgeist. It's not Gone with the Wind where it breaks all these box office records or something like that. And so you get these movies and then you watch them and you like them and you wonder why it didn't really hit. That's kind of how this episode feels to me. This is a classic. This belongs as a classic Survivor episode. It definitely earns that title for sure. But how do you get eyes on it? How do you convince people to watch this season, especially when most people nowadays, especially, are going to say, okay, there's so many things to binge watch and all of that. If I can skip episodes of Survivor or seasons of Survivor, what should I do? Let me go look at a ranking. And almost any ranking you look at, Fiji's going to be in the bottom 5 to 10 seasons of any ranking, and people might just flat out skip it, knowing none of these players are in Game Changers, none of these players are in Heroes versus Villains, and knowing that the only person who is in one of these episodes is in Fan versus Favorites for 3 or 4 episodes, and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, and he's not even that big in that. And I think the nail in the coffin is Earl not being on Winners at War, because all of these new Survivor fans, like you said, they're not going to it. And I think after watching Winners at War, some people are going to be like, oh my God, I want to go back and watch Cook Islands because I love you all. Yeah. There's no opportunity to go back and watch Fiji unless it's your own opinion.
Unless you're doing it unless you're Celestina's friend and Celestina's been telling you for days and months and years, you need to watch this season. I know it's very weird. It's very, very weird how this one kind of just falters. It's I don't know.
Which is funny because when I watched the episode and I was taking notes, I was like, this is one of my favorite episodes that we've watched in this series. Probably because I haven't watched it. I've watched it maybe twice or once since I watched it live. But talking about its impact, it's really kind of hits a roadblock.
It does. And what's funny is when Alexa and I were talking about this series and what episodes are we going to do, and we were trying to plan out our last 4, This one almost was an afterthought. It just kind of came up and we were like, oh, that would be a good one to do.
Yeah.
Because for as popular as it was at the time, people don't talk about it nearly as much anymore. And they should. They really, really should, because this is one of the finest moments of gameplay in the history of the show. It just doesn't have that impact, that long-lasting impact like so many others.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm glad we did it. I'm glad. I mean, we're trying to do kind of more old school-esque episodes, even though next week we are going fairly. We're entering the new school era,
and then we go back.
And then we go backwards. Yeah, we only have 3 left after this. So hopefully you guys like our choices. For next week, we are going to be talking about an episode, the 7th episode of Kaguya, called Head of the Snake, the Kaguya merge episode. And it's going to be good.
Which I think is a lot easier to talk about the impact that it's had on the show overall. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like this has direct player impact.
Crazy. and in reality, like, this is another moment that we're talking about right now that didn't happen at Tribal Council, but the Tribal Council in this episode is amazing. This could be a top 10 episode of Survivor. I'm not even kidding. The one that we just watched from Fiji could be a top 10 episode of Survivor. It has everything you could ever want. And yet it is from Survivor Fiji, and it has been lost to time.
That's so sad.
So sad. But anyway, next week will be fun, everybody. That's an episode that certainly is not lost to time and that people are going to be watching all the damn time. But that's really all I have to say about this one, Alexa. Do we have anything else you want to say? That's
really all I had. Do you want to tell the kids at home about the lobster?
Yeah. So John and I are going to be a little late tonight, probably around 9:30 Eastern, 9:45 Eastern, something like that. But John and I are going to be talking about the lobster and The Wizard of Oz. So there you go. Those two movies, fun going back and forth there.
How do you do? How do you? Oh, both of your.
Both of our movies. Yeah. This is our number 92 for each of us. One with the Stone just said, did you guys already discuss season 41 updates? We did not, but if you become a patron, I talked about it yesterday on the Daily Content Podcast. Actually have more concrete information. I feel like all we really have right now is that Jeff has long hair, looks kind of old, and that it's happening. I don't feel like we really got much else from that or anything new from that. But again, this series isn't really about that. So we'll probably do another type of breakdown when we actually have more information. Maybe if we get a theme, if we get, a location. I mean, we don't know where they're going to be going even yet. So it's hard to talk about it when we don't even know where they're going.
Yeah, but it's happening, and that alone is plenty exciting.
Yes, that is really all that matters. And somebody is going to cut Jeff Probst's hair, and it's
someone. My God, someo's got to do it.
And that's going to be hanging. His hair is going to be hanging on Matt Bischoff's wall, right next to my beard hair that I had to send to the man.
Oh my God, that's so weird. Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll turn into an immunity idol. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, it's very exciting. So yeah, and is the challenge still at show?
Yeah, so John, Annabelle, and myself are going to be late tomorrow, though, because I have to work tomorrow night. So probably going to be a little bit like closer to 10 o'clock start time, hopefully, as long as my DVR works. It wasn't working today, so hopefully it works tomorrow. But look a little bit closer to 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern tomorrow. That is the plan as of right now.
That's it for this week. And the next week, Robert and I are kicking off the 6th episode of South African Survivor Season 6 at 5 p.m. on Monday. Phil and I are going to be a little earlier next week. We're still going to be on Tuesday, but we're going to be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern talking about the Kaguya merge. You guys, I'm sure you saw this banner for the all 38 of you who have been watching live. Become a patron. We always talk about it at the beginning and the end, but we want to promote it throughout the entire episode. So become a patron at patreon.com/Survivor Specialist. Phil is crushing daily content. We have come up with a March Madness bracket that we are going to do for our retrospective, and we just finished our Q&A. So now is a great time to become a patron. It is only going to become better as season 41 approaches.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds good. I will see everybody in a couple hours, and Alexa will see everybody in a couple days.
Bye. Have a great day.